Okay. And then share screen. Okay. I'm going to turn the lights down, if that's okay for folks, so you can see a little bit better. Okay. It's okay. Well, very good. And to the folks who are joining via Zoom, you should be able to see the presentation on your screen. I want to welcome everyone. This is a really important project for the borough. And so for our longtime residents, our new residents, our businesses, it's about as important as it can be for the vitality of our community. Just make sure we're muted here. So first and foremost, who am I? My name's Mark. I serve as council president here in Castle Shannon. So I want to welcome you. With us this evening, we have a number of folks who are either councilmen or women, volunteers, library staff, firefighters, the mayor, borough manager, and then of course our colleagues and our neighbors here. So thank you all for being here. We're going to cover a couple topics this evening. The first is we're going to discuss what is the lion's share of a new investment that the borough is about to make, which is in, sorry, I'm making sure people are muted, which is in a parks master plan. Now, if you have joined us for our first master plan conversation, which was held here and it was recorded, there have been updates to that plan. So we thank you for being here and checking in on the project. So we're going to go through all of the slated improvements that would be made across all 6 of our formal parks and also what we call our Parks Plus plan now, because we're including the library grounds as kind of a 7th park within the plan. So that will all be covered in the master plan conversation. The second portion is, I would argue, equally important, which is a comprehensive wayfinding system throughout the borough. This is refreshing the navigation and the signage throughout the borough so that folks can see the locations, they can better direct themselves. And again, we all know where we're going because we're local, but to be able to find things effectively and to be able to route themselves, know when you've been there. If you're on Main Street, you know what's down the corner around the ways, how to get to the transit stop. That's a really important part of having a healthy community, a walkable community. So we're going to go through a final concept and some alternative within the wayfinding section. A breakdown of how the conversation is going to go tonight. So we're in a hybrid setting, which is a little bit cumbersome, I'll admit. We have some participants via Zoom and then certainly folks here in person. So if you are joining via Zoom, we're glad you're here. In the program itself, there should be a button that allows you to raise your hand to signal you'd wish to comment. That'll be the best way to flag to me that you'd like to speak. We'd ask that you'd mute otherwise, just so there isn't ambient noise. There are going to be portions where I'm going to go through the entirety of the section before we offer comments. So please, if you're able to, write down or make a mental note of the question you'd like to ask so that we can come back to it. We want all the questions. It's just hard to break up in between. And then of course, for people here in person, when we're ready for questions, just raise your hand, just like other folks are doing. And as always, we want to have conversation, and it's fine to disagree with anyone here. Just please do so respectfully. So we're going to start with the Parks Master Plan. If you have lived in our community, it's probably been a long time since you've noticed a major improvement to any of our parks, because it has been, of course, piecemeal improvements, but not comprehensively, not in a major new amenity, major improvement that really kind of sings. And so we think we're due. We know we're due. And so we want to make those improvements and do so in what we believe is still a fiscally responsible way. How did we get here is worth saying. So we're at kind of the last stop on, or the next to last stop on this process. We secured grant funding to conduct a parks master plan. We did a request for proposal. Our vendor and who happens to be our borough engineer, Lennon Smith, represented by John over here. Lennon Smith led us through this process. A committee of officials, staff, and neighbors, and I think a diverse group came together to serve on the committee. A report was drafted, and then the first public meeting was had so we could consider those comments and those ideas. A set of revisions were made. The committee considered those revisions, and now we're here with a final revised version and to make a set of recommendations again, still open for feedback, of course, but we're in that final round of revisions. That's how close we are. The one step that's beyond this is that council will adopt the financial commitment of the bond. And with that financial commitment, we would be saying yes to the projects within the parks plan and the wayfinding project. So that's where we are. That's where we've been. It's been about, I'd say, 9 months of work, which is actually pretty quick, all things considered. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with the parks plan. Again, there's 7 parks we're going to talk about. And I'd like to be able to go through all of them in one shot. And the reason why is because you might want to see an amenity somewhere in the borough, but it's actually covered in the next park or 2 parks from now. So please just bear with me to get through all the parks. I still want all your questions. And then we'll pause at the end of the parks review, and then we'll go through and say, can we do this? What about this? That's all fine. We're going to start with our largest park, kind of our signature park, which is Hamilton. Hamilton is divided into 4 sections: upper parking lot, middle, which is in between, lower, which is the lower fields, and then the rear, which is actually towards the back, and it has currently a Quonset hut and a basketball court. If you don't go on the walking trail, you might not even see it. So we're starting in this image with upper and middle Hamilton Park. To your upper left, that kind of colorful image you see is actually a spray park, a spray pad. We do not have a water amenity for our families here in town. We have recently joined a rec share program or created one with Dormont so that you could have a paid for pass to the Dormont pool. However, for both summer recreation and for just general recreation, water amenities are really important, especially in hot weather. So there is a splash pad up here with the necessary infrastructure. This is going to be a treated pad, which means that the water is treated and recycled through it instead of constantly being expended back into the system. That's an environmental thing. We don't want to use more water than we need to. Say bye to my son. Good night, Elliot. To the right of the park, you'll see a much expanded playground footprint. The playgrounds that are there kind of currently envelop all of that park space up there. But now there's going to be one centralized playground right in the middle, and it's going to be a substantial piece of equipment. I think we're envisioning over $300,000 piece of equipment there. All of the, I think the majority of all the playgrounds we're going to be installing in this plan have the rubberized play surface underneath it. So it's not going to be mulch, which seasonally gets washed out and requires a lot of maintenance. It's that rubberized surface. There's swings to the side of that. The little boxes you see are furniture such as benches or public art installations as well. You'll also notice that the trail system has been expanded and has been slightly rerouted where appropriate. So new paved, just like the new paving that's up there now, a paved walkways that's friendly for strollers, friendly for wheelchairs, where you can walk and egress all the way. What's slightly off the upper park is a new access point between downtown and upper Hamilton. We are planning to build a stairwell that would connect the back of upper Hamilton to Fountain Street, which is the residential street behind Mindful Brewery. If someone said to you today, walk from middle of downtown up to Hamilton Park, you'd say, get out of here. There's no way I'm doing it. I'll catch an Uber. But that route is really important because it allows folks to now have a reasonable access point and a safe one to go up and down. So we would get someone down to Fountain Street, and then we would make some pedestrian improvements on Fountain Street so that folks could get down to where the corner of Mindful Brewery is in 88, and you can cross at an existing crosswalk to get into town. The pavilion and the restrooms and the parking lot up there are as they are today. No changes. In the middle portion, so that's below, that's called Middle Hamilton for now. This is thought of as more of what they call passive park. This is not for programming. This is not to host big groups of people. This is more for the walker with their dog or just themselves who are looking for just kind of a quiet spot in nature away from things. We have a diverse constituent base here. Some are young families, some are there to take in nature. And so that this park is large enough that we can kind of create little moments that are distinct for that type of user is really important. But you can see down there, it's mostly plantings, it's landscape design. If you've ever been to the Pittsburgh Botanical Gardens, that design is inspired by landscape design and architecture that is brought there. So there's some small renderings, not to be exactly mimicked, but that's kind of the feel or the ethos of what we're trying to bring to that middle park area. That's upper and middle. Now we're going to lower Hamilton where the field is and the lower parking lot. So as it's currently rendered and what's currently in the plan is that Hamilton Park would become a turf field. This is by far the largest driver of cost in this plan. It's over $2 million to turf this field. So no question that that is a major decision point that we want to weigh before we go into this project. It's worth saying that we've taken in feedback from both the residents that use that park, are nearby schools that are looking for places to have their sports, their teams use and practice for facilities. Obviously, our youth association is eager to see a park that is more durable to heavy rains, that doesn't have a washed out field, that doesn't have runoff issues, that is durable and also low maintenance for our staff. We're only a finite size, but it continues to be consuming of our resources in public works. So turf solves a lot of that. Of course, you're paying for that privilege. What you see here is everything that's in the middle and green is turf. You see that it is still functional as a baseball field. It is also functional long ways as a, I'll call it older age group soccer field or field hockey or lacrosse. And then in the cross direction, you could have younger groups of soccer or field hockey or what have you with smaller field footprints. This is an enhancement too for families who use that park for rentals. They're obviously it's more durable. You can have you have an even playing field. You're not going to twist your ankle on kind of a dugout hole, which has, as you know, for Community Day, we currently have vendors that drive onto our field, which put ruts through our field, and we don't want that to happen in the future. So the field as presented is turfed. On the leftmost side, you see that our tennis courts have been slightly reconfigured. There is still one main tennis court, but we are creating 2 new pickleball courts. That's becoming a more accessible game for sport for folks to play of all ages. So we want to encourage that use. We also, to the leftmost, even left of the tennis courts, we actually have currently there's a retaining wall back there that's not in great shape. We envision using that as something of a rain garden or some type of water feature to help capture water and better irrigate the area in a responsible way. You'll also see to the right side of the image, the buildings. There's a lot of reconfiguration here. Currently, we have separate facilities for a kitchen and storage and covered seating with picnic benches. That is considered now to be one building, one unified building that has an integrated stage. It has an integrated pavilion that can be rented still, just like it currently is with neighbors. It will have a commercial kitchen that is rentable as well, and storage, of course, for what we need for fields. Having it integrated into a footprint allows for better egress for vehicles or equipment to come in on the left side, but also allows our families to be close enough to the field that when they have rentals or they have events that they're still proximate. There is one design change from what you see here. We didn't get a new rendering. Currently, above and below the pickleball courts, there are 2 playgrounds rendered. We received feedback, and it was good feedback, that those playgrounds feel a bit far removed from where the pavilion is, so that if families are there for an event or a rental, that's a far distance for maybe young kids to be from where their families are. So what we're doing is we're actually reducing that to just 1 playground, but it's going to be right next to the stage. So the stage is the bottommost box on the right, and in that grassy area next to it, that's where that playground will be. So there will be a playground at Lower Hamilton, which was a priority of folks, and I understand that, and it will be more proximate to the rental facility itself. The last thing for Lower Hamilton is that it will be lit. We have a constraint right now, which is the daytime, and all of our parks close at dusk. However, whether it's adult leagues after work or just folks that their only time to get a walk-in is in the evening, it's important that they have proper facilities and safe facilities to do that. So the lower portions of Hamilton are going to be lit. These are what they call kind of dark sky friendly lights. So they only direct down and not up. They have a high quality of light, still within, code, of course, but there is not light escape issues that the neighbors would have to be concerned about with the configuration. So that is Lower Hamilton. We're going to go to Rear Hamilton next. Currently, there is a public works facility on the rightmost side of that cement pathway. That's going to be demolished. It's not really necessary and it's in bad shape. What you see here is a full court sport court, so that folks can play full court basketball. It actually is modular so that you can play volleyball on it. You can use it for tennis if you wanted. So that kind of dexterity with the use is important. We can't predict all the sports people want to play, so we'll make it so that it's adaptable. It also will have an important other use. We will wire it so that we can park food trucks there. We want to remove food trucks from being on our fields, whether it's grass or it's turf, and we want to give them a safer place and a better place for hookups for electrical. So it's going to double as a food truck hangout area when there's a big event such as Community Day, but it also is going to have a recreational purpose all the other times. Behind that court, you can see is a Quonset hut where we store borough equipment. It is likely that that Quonset hut is going to be relocated. So this rendering shows it's still being present, but we believe that footprint will actually be open to do something else with. Okay, so that's Hamilton, and that's obviously our most expansive park. We're going to move on to Municipal next. Like I said, questions at the end of the parks plan, we'll happily take them. So the Municipal Center is an important park for organized sports, still large outings like tournaments, and we hope in the future adult leagues as well. So what you see here is the baseball field in the upper left. Our borough building has the brown roof to the right of that, and some reconfiguring as well. I'm going to start at the topmost portion, which you see currently as rendered a sport court and a sand volleyball court. That grassy area is pretty much open right now. One major change that's going to happen in that little area is that the old gymnasium is going to be demolished. It's a short gymnasium. The roof is very low. It has no HVAC and it has a lot of water damage. So it's beyond saving. We're going to reuse that place or that area for 2 things. One is expanded parking, which is a necessity up there when you do have high traffic events. The second is for a public safety use. There is, it's an industry term, but there's something called a sally port, which is the ability for a police officer to pull in to a covered and discrete area if they have someone who is handcuffed. and be able to walk them into the building discreetly. There's multiple reasons for this, but you can imagine that if you were at a girls softball game right now, if someone were to be booked and pulled out of a police car, they'd be walking right in front of the concession stand while that's happening. We would like to eliminate that potential. So this would allow them to enter the rear of the building, which would be more discreet, but still access the police department in a short amount of time. The rendering, as you see, it preserves and plants more trees than are currently there. We do have a change here. The sand volleyball court is still in the plan, but we are removing the sport court for both cost reasons, but also if we feel like it cramps that area a little bit too much and we'd like to keep more of the natural beauty there. We do anticipate there being a half-court basketball court somewhere on that side of the building as we removed a basketball hoop from the other side towards the parking lot. So we will restore that amenity, but not take up as much footprint. The field is largely staying as is. The concession stand, which is, I guess you'd say along the first baseline, probably right near first base, inside the Borough building, we're going to be building a deck off of that so folks can better view the games and have a little bit more place that they could kind of belly up to a little place to put their soft pretzel and eat it. We need more space back there, it seems. We also will be adding new seating, embedding it in the hillside. Right now we have an overgrown hillside that goes down to the field, and not only do we have some drainage work we need to do there, but it's useless space that could be used for seating. So we will be embedding seating in that hillside for games. The upper parking lots remaining the same. If you are a walker in that area, we will still have a continuous walking trail just the same as is up there. The lower portion of this is going to be different. You can see the gray at the bottom is extended parking. So it stops currently just short of where the walking trail meets that area. We're moving the playground and expanding it to make it larger. We will also be shading it. Shading playgrounds is increasingly important for safety of children with sun exposure. So we will have a shaded playground, again, with that soft rubbery surface. We will have to the left of that a new pavilion that's a little bit better oriented shape-wise so that folks can still view a game if it's going on. The existing batting cage will be removed, and we will put a covered swing set along that stretch as well. But we have gained probably 12 to 15 parking spaces by expanding parking in that direction, and then even more if you include what was added on the other side of the Borough building. So this is a significant upgrade to a highly used park. Now we're going to transition to Real Park. So Real Park is a gem, it's just underutilized. So we're going to kind of really reconfigure it in a productive way. The important thing here is on the right side, we're budgeting for space for deck hockey. Deck hockey is increasingly a popular sport. It's coming back in many ways, and it's a rare amenity for a community to have just because it takes up a lot of footprint and requires very flat area. So we've surveyed around, and there is a deficit of that type of amenity. It's worth saying that there's a lot of funding interest in deck hockey right now, both from private and public entities. So while the rendering includes deck hockey, we have removed it from the bond issuance because we believe we'll have good fortune in raising the money to build it. So every intent is there that we will proceed with deck hockey. We just don't believe we're going to have to pay for it out of bond proceeds. You'll see that a playground has been added to near the upper left corner of the deck hockey court. The triangles that you see are shaded picnic benches for families who are watching games. There is already a soccer field on the other side, and that will remain the same. There's a potential that a smaller now second soccer field could even fit further to the left there. We did remove one of the playgrounds that is rendered here. There's actually three here, one in the right corner, one in the lower center portion, and one in the left corner of the bend in the trail. We will be removing the one at the bend in the trail on the left for cost reasons, but there still will be 2 other playgrounds there. Otherwise, that field is remaining the same. We will be redoing the entire retaining wall on the back. If you've been up there, it looks a little sketchy. We have bee issues back there. So that entire retaining wall will be redone. It's actually a significant portion of the cost of that playground, or that park, excuse me. Now we're getting into our smaller parks, all still important, of course, but just smaller footprint. Chestnut Park is right down from the library here. This has already been improved upon recently. We paved did new landscaping and paved the basketball court. So really the only change here is we're going to upsize the gazebo, or the shelter that's in the middle of that park, so that more people can have shaded access there. Right now it only fits 1 picnic table, so it'll fit probably about 3 or 4 now. So a nice improvement for shading. Otherwise, we'll do some landscape improvements there, remove some of the traffic barriers, and move more towards more of a natural landscaping motif, if you will. But otherwise, that park's pretty well composed as is. Prospect Park, I want to thank all the neighbors that reached out to us about Prospect Park, because it was important for us to hear your voices. Originally, there was a pretty significant redesign and reconfiguration even of traffic patterns up near Prospect Park. We were thinking big at the time, but the residents up there kind of gave us good feedback and gave us a moment of pause. So as a result, we are keeping the traffic pattern as it is, and we're largely keeping the format, but we're going to refresh everything that's there. So we have new tree plantings, a cleaned up basketball court that's already there, just kind of improving it where it's a little bit decrepit, a brand new playground facility up there, brand new swing set up there. And as I mentioned, there's no reconfiguration of traffic. We had put in a parking circle that is no longer part of it. You will still be able to pull your car around, fully around that building, or that park, excuse me. But the neighbors were pretty keen on saying, we really don't want big changes here, and we're here to listen. So we took that feedback to heart, and that's what we came back with. So now O'Brien Field, this is kind of our old former baseball field that's really not used anymore. I want to be clear about this. We are not doing anything to O'Brien Field in this plan. What we did do is we asked our engineering firm to give us a sense of what the highest and best use of that property would be, since we were looking at all the parks. But I just want to make it clear, there are no changes happening to O'Brien in this plan. In their research, they basically said the highest and best use of this property is the future location potentially of a public works facility. Public works facility now is fairly undersized for our needs. Our fleet has grown, our sophistication has grown. So we do need to kind of think about our footprint in the future. We are aware that this is more of a residential area. Granted, where they are now is a residential area as well. But so that's why we're not proposing this. We're simply saying, give us a look and feel of what it would take and what it would cost. But this is not in the near term. And I'll be frank in that it may never happen. We may choose to improve public works in its existing footprint closer to Willow Avenue. But it was important for us to at least give it consideration. And then our final, the plus portion of the plan is the building that we are here in, the library. Truly just one of the best assets, kind of the unsung hero of our recreation. The amount of programming and the amount of public service that happens here is tremendous. So we need to be investing in here. We need to make this, with proximity to the school and with how walkable this portion of the neighborhood is, this just needs to be an asset that's worth bragging about. So all of the improvements are slated to be on the external portions of the building. So the Myrtle Avenue side, or the front door, is towards the top of this rendering. In the front yard, we are going to be adding some shade sails, which give it kind of there's actually some examples here of shade sails a pop of color, a little of excitement from the street level, and then some shade. We need shade. Along the front portions of the building, there's going to be furniture that you'll be able to kind of grab and move to your liking. So folks are able to read outdoors, or, you actually may have seen that we already host programs outdoors between the book clubs and there's a lot that goes on. So we want to make that outdoor space visible, but compelling. You'll see that there's new tree plantings that's prepared here. So other forms of furniture, we're still figuring out what we want to do, but the front door of this building will be quite provocative and exciting. We'll make some landscaping improvements down the side of the building, potential for kind of a library garden or fairy garden as we come down this side of the building. The right side, you'll see, is slated to become a pavement mural. Right now, it's kind of an odd little traffic loop that really has not a lot of purpose. I think the male women, they do a little loop here, but otherwise, we think it actually could be a place where the kids can go outside and chalk, or we can use it as a public art opportunity. Sometimes just having these little kind of vignettes of walks, just checking it out and seeing how it's changed is a nice use of time. So we'd like to do that. We're not proposing necessarily that we close it to traffic, but there's a potential that we could close it to traffic if we wanted to do that. What I'll also say is we've budgeted to improve the lighting in the lower lots here. It is not well lit, and certainly not at night. Unfortunately, you'll see that as you leave this evening. So we're hoping to do something with lighting. There is the potential that with our streetscape project happening downtown, we may be able to repurpose the historic lighting that's downtown and the parking lot here, which would be a really neat conservation of an architectural feature for our community. We are also suggesting in the lower portion to relocate the dumpster. Right now, it's kind of behind some tattered fencing. So we don't know the final location of it, but we will likely relocate it. Come on in. It is proposed in the lower lot that someday we will be building an outdoor pavilion that can be used for outdoor entertainment. Think of it as a tiny stage. And on that stage, you could have certainly outdoor children's programming. You could have a food truck that came there, and you could rent that facility potentially to use as an event space. So there's some interesting ideas for the lower lot. We do think there's grant funding opportunities for that design as well. Plus, we want to work with our library staff to understand how they want to use it. What are the features of that pavilion that would make it sing? So the bond does not pay for this pavilion build out, just because we want to see if we can finance it in a different way, but we would love to see it happen. So we'll be working with them to see that come to realization. Okay, so as I promised, and that's just some renderings of what those things could look like respectively. So the final bit, and then we're going to open up to questions, is how do we pay for this? Because that's important. So we have exercised, my colleagues and I, the people that have come before us on council and the mayor, we have exercised excellent fiscal responsible management of this borough, to the point where it's not just my belief is that our bond rating agencies affirm it. We get clean audits year after year. We're very proud of that. It's a tribute to how we want to treat our taxpayers. We have applied for and have determined that we have the ability to issue a bond up to $9.6 million. And that bond, not unlike a mortgage on your home, allows you to make annual payments or monthly payments that make it more digestible for you to make this investment. The borough currently has a bond, and we will be restructuring that bond so that it's all one. But one of our parameters as a council was we do not want to add any debt service, meaning our annual mortgage payment. We do not want to increase our annual mortgage payment for this bond. We're not comfortable with that. And so one of our parameters was our budget is only as big as the debt will allow us to stay within our current budget. And the good news is that we have been approved to the number of 9.6 million, such that our payments on the bond do not exceed our debt service that currently exists. That was a really important priority of ours. So the final thing, and if you're a spreadsheet nerd, this is for you. This is a breakdown of, in the first column, after the name parks, in the first column, it's the original costs, which totaled 11.6 million to do all of those parks. The wayfinding below it was an additional cost, but that parks plan was 11.6 million if we didn't change it, and if we just went with the original plan. We've since made amendments to it, and now that we understand what our bond allowance is, that keeps us in a financially good place, we had to pare that back to within the 9.6. So the adjusted total column tells you where we made those adjustments and how we got that price down to, for the parks plan, just under 9.5 million. And then you'll see below there's an allocation towards wayfinding, which we'll discuss in a minute. But the total of both of those projects is still under that 9.6 million, which was our limit. So again, I just want to be clear, while we are issuing debt, our annual payments towards debt will not increase, just to be clear. All right. We are at the point where you have been very patient, and I thank you. If you would like to comment on a specific park, let me know. I will flip the presentation back to that park so we can make a reference to it. And as I said, for those joining via Zoom, just raise your hand, click the button, and I promise I will get to you. So while folks are deciding if they want to raise their hand, let's start with folks here, please.
Hamilton Park, first of all, I love the summer day camp and I hope it continues. The rear section of Hamilton, where you are going to take the Quonset hut out and you have that full-size lot or ball field, you put that back where the Quonset hut is and have extra parking in there where the field is, where you're talking about the basketball field. You could put that back where the Quonset hut is and have some parking in there.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding you right, in this image, you would like to see more parking extending down off the hill and maybe towards that rear portion?
See that blue full court?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
That
Yeah.
would be parking, and then where the Quonset hut is, you're gonna
Okay.
take out, put the court back there,
Okay,
is what I'm thinking. It would
Okay.
just give you a little more parking for community day and things like that.
understood. That's a reasonable suggestion. Thank you. In the back.
I have to make a good comment. 25 years. We've been here in our this place always, we had a hard time getting. Wonderful to see we're expanding. There's two
Thank you.
things.
Mhm.
When you're talking about the turf, are
Mhm.
you gonna put a fence around it? Because I've been to other parks and they have fencing so no one will damage the turf. People who go down, I know you have cameras and that, but
Mhm.
there are people who go down there who want to do things to the park. We don't want to be negative, but
That's okay.
to protect it, you know, when we're not using it, you know, like going to golf, it should be locked.
Mhm.
And secondly, it's the lights.
Mhm.
The lights we have here at the library, I have a hard time with those lights.
Mhm.
And that's why I have to buy the sunglasses
Mhm.
and Shannon.
Mhm.
When I asked the eye doctor why I am having a hard time with these lights, he said because you should understand this, one's a redhead, blue eyes, and fair skin.
Hmm.
He said you can get you expensive glasses like over $1,000.
Wow.
So you can adapt to these lights. So, and I know it affects other people. I have talked to other people. These lights are way too bright. They're right directly in your eyes. And, you know, that's in my concern. If you're gonna put all these lights in all the parks, a lot of people are gonna be staying home
Mhm.
and won't be able to enjoy them at night.
Yeah. Well, yeah, fair comments. So just to address both of them. So first on the security side, yes, the plan is that we will be expanding our vision, our police security system so that we'll have good eyes on this investment. Even now, even if the gate was locked at Hamilton Park, if you were dead set on doing graffiti, you're going to get in there. So we certainly can't make it airtight, certainly can't close off all the entrances. But what we can do is make sure that if someone has malintent, that they're visible to us and they would have to expose themselves in order to do whatever they're thinking about doing. The new building will be secure. You know, we worry about people kicking in doors or trying to jam at locks. As far as the walking trail, you know, I'll actually, not that you ever want to have this trade-off, but I would rather have a safely lit at night pathway for people so that they can enjoy it at later hours than us having to close the park to those people prematurely. So there is a balance between, is it locked up tight or is it still accessible to people when they want to use it? But the point's well taken that security is top of mind for us. As far as the type of lights and the quality of lights, I certainly can't disagree with your experience. Some people are sensitive to bright LED lights. I know that for traffic style lights, you can indicate basically the brightness or the foot candles of it. But one of the important factors is you don't get spillage. So for example, some lights are just kind of rotated up and facing out. Okay, so that spills out such that even if you're not looking at it, it's in your field of vision and it can be distracting. Our intention is that these lights, they're really downward. So you would have to be under it and looking up in order to see it. Otherwise, you're just seeing a well-lit area in front of you. The one area that can't be like that are the ones that shine on the field, but those are going to be high. So the good news there, those will be high and down versus, you know, low and pointed outwards. But there's a trade-off there too. But I do think that the balance between pedestrian lit foot candles versus the field foot candles, there is going to be a difference in the high quality of that light. So we do want to strike that balance. Those are good. Yes.
While we're on this graphic at Hamilton, I'm totally against changing a grass field to an artificial turf field for 3 reasons. One is it's unhealthy for people. And by people, I mean athletes, kids, old people. It off gases benzene, it leaks lead, it's Roundup tires. It's unhealthy for the environment. There's a lot more drainage into our already overloaded sewer system because that's not going to absorb any of the rainwater. And you know, it messes up the ecosystem down there, creates a heat island. I mean, there's a dozen environmental things that it violates. And then the third reason is that at 1.5 million, that's a real hit or a big chunk of the borough budget for something that's not used. We have another soccer field at Rowell. There's probably only maybe 10 games that have been played down there in the last year. So you're talking about 20 hours of field use. Now, if it was, you know, you said that schools might use it or whatever, but I'm not interested in building something for private entities or club sports or, you know, I'd rather see it stay grass where walkers and dog walkers and people bring their kids up there and let them run around. And that's not going to happen if it's an artificial turf field. At 1.5 million, I would rather see that 1.5 go to programming, where we have somebody who is planning events on a grass field like concerts or movie night or, you know, whatever the community thinks they're interested in. And you can't do that with volunteers. We do a great job with Community Day. We do a pretty good job with the Fall Festival. But if you're going to do consistent programming, you need to have somebody in charge of it. And so I think that money could be spent elsewhere for better use by other residents to, you know, for this field or even the other fields. The other thing is artificial turf is something that doesn't last forever. They guarantee it anywhere between 5 and 8 years. After 10, it's pretty well shot. And so you're baking into the borough budget something that in 10 years, you're going to have another big chunk of costs to replace it. Plus you have to buy special equipment to maintain it. I mean, there's a lot of other things. So even though there's some, you know, plus to having it, I don't think that it's really $1.5 million expensive green vinyl cardboard. And there's so many downsides to it. I just think that that should be taken out of the plan now. And we can work on doing improvements, maybe to what the grass is down there, like there are drainage issues. I mean, I've lived near there for 45 years. They've redone the drainage 3 times, I think, in that 45 years and haven't really gotten it right yet. So I understand that there are issues with that that need to be addressed and maybe some other amenities that you could take part of that money and do it. But I just think $1.5 million is a big price tag for something that's not going to get used that much.
Thank you.
And Diploma, it's interesting because as you say that, I'm thinking community day, we're taking out blankets and we're not putting it on grass, we're putting it on turf.
Yeah, hot turf, when it's
Yeah.
90 degrees, I mean, especially the ones I think of, or it's so great that we started the daycare thing back up, or what do you call that, camp? I
Camp.
call it, I'm
Summer
sorry.
camp.
That's a yeah, that's a grandma thing. Summer camp, and those, when it's 90 degrees out, you put that much vinyl down, it's gonna be 10 degrees hotter. So then those kids are trying to play on a field that's 100 degrees. You know, with the apartments, because you took out, I mean, that's, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Hamilton. Well, you've all been down with the community day, but it's like a canyon. And so they took out all the trees behind it for the big apartment buildings. There's a lot of heat coming off of that asphalt and roofs to begin with. So you're getting heat from that side. And now you're gonna lay down vinyl carpet and get heat from a field. And the sun rises from where the apartments are and goes over that. So that field gets sun until almost sunset, until it goes over the hill. And so you're really, you know, going to be cooking those kids down there.
I couldn't disagree with you more. After being a phys ed teacher for 17 years, I'm gonna be honest, a lot of what you said is not correct. I've been on turf fields for 15 of my 17 years, and you don't bake on them. They're actually a lot better. As summer rec director from last year, I lost a lot of days because the field was flooded. So it's a one program, but it's when you get rain the night before, and now you can't do anything on it. It's an investment for everybody. Right there, if there's a chance that O'Brien Field goes away, I'm also the CSYA vice president. I seem to hold a lot of things around here, unfortunately. Just how it is. If you lose O'Brien Field possibly, then you have another field. Real field will be gone, so there's a team. We just went from last year, one softball. We now have 4 girls softball teams this year. That's adding 2 more. So now we have 7 teams in Castle Shannon when we were holding like 4 at one field, because we can't use Hamilton because the big are baseball. That's why that field is rendered useless. Now you can have more than one team player. You can use that. I can have my kids playing softball. I can have them playing soccer. They can be playing pickleball. They can be on the playground all at the same time. There's so much more that you can do with this turf than you ever will be able to do with that grass. And I'm a grass field person. I used to love it. But if you're looking at for longevity and you're looking to get people, otherwise, you just have a big green pasture that you can use. And that's
I have a comment on Zoom I want to get to. So Caroline Marsili, thanks for raising your hand. Do you want to unmute?
I think I did.
Yes, you did. Hi.
Hi, how are you? Thanks. This is great. I'm great for developing in areas. However, I live right from the park. And when you move, when you find a home, the first thing is the why, you know, and it was my backyard and the use of Hamilton Park. And it was for mainly because I had an animal dog. And this really is a dog community and has become since I moved here in 2015. And I actually lived in Mount Lebanon and was on a dog park committee issue that became where the dogs are no longer. And it just feels like we are moving in that direction. Because if we're going turf, certainly we're not going to allow our animals on the turf. So I do hope that you guys, that we hope we can respect that we as residents, we were here, we're trying to still save some of our part, and that part of the park does remain for dogs. My other big concern is, because we have it now, is traffic. And that occurred really started with the GPS is pretty bad up here. The woman who spoke earlier about the parking, definitely a concern. There is not really a lot of parking in Hamilton Park area. Community Days is okay. We all know it. We all get excited for it. Of course, we all took the hit with Hamilton Parks and lost. The best thing about it was feel like you could touch the fireworks from our street during Community Days. So those are just kind of my thoughts on it all, but I am concerned about the traffic that we do have now. It's and then to bring more in. So that is a big concern right now from us in this area. And I hate to see people starting to move out of the area because of the traffic. So we are starting to see that, I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just, yeah, Carolyn, I'm just going to reiterate this for the room, just some didn't hear you. So there's a concern for folks who are dog owners that if we turf a field, it won't be as dog friendly because it won't be planted grass. The second concern was around traffic and the traffic increase that can happen if this becomes more of a marquee amenity, marquee location. Yes, you're going to have a lot more use as a result. And then Carolyn had said she lives right on the edge of the park, so she sees it all the time. And we're saying, so the rules for dogs in all of our parks are always on leash and always on path. And so in this case, there is still grass planned along the path. Yeah, and the paths on the upper portions, of course, are not turf. Nothing's turf up above. But even there are grassy areas around the turf field. You can see here the light green is turf. The darker shade of green is grass. And so you would still have, keeping that in mind, you still would have a dog on leash and on path. You would still have grass proximate to you, just to clarify. Okay, we're good here. So go ahead, Annie.
I realize this is not like the engineered final drawing. I just wanted to, this is the good, you were talking about possibly truck parking on that back. And I just wanted to bring up, making sure that we're engineering proper turning radiuses in that not long straightaway. And I know unfortunately there's kind of hills on both sides, but I'm hoping that will be factored in, what size, even the fire trucks, backing in and not being able to turn around or something. So hopefully
it's a good point.
We'll take that into account.
Thank you. You just spoke to him, so that's good.
Oh,
Please.
okay, Prospect Park.
Oh, sure.
First of all, I'm really glad you're putting swings and playground back in. We're really happy about that. Do we have any date when this might start? Because we've been promised swings for about 5 years now. And we're, something like everybody's waiting for something to happen. And it looks like you're gonna have 2 shaded seating areas. Is there any way, because it looked like you saved over $100,000 on this back to where we want it to be, plan that we could have some shade over the playground so that the swing, or not the slides and stuff aren't scalding hot in the summer, like you're gonna have at Hamilton Park, and I think you have down here at Chestnut Park. Can we put some, could you get shade over that playground area too? Okay. But we're real happy about it.
Yeah. Sorry, I pointed to one of our engineers here. So we'll see what the cost is of that.
Okay.
Yes, you're correct that those are shaded picnic tables, but
And
yes.
that's Ron, what's that, Ron?
A small pavilion. Yeah, covered pavilion.
Okay. So another shaded area.
It is shaded. Yeah.
Okay.
So like if grandma's watching
There's
the
no
kids
way
play.
to have a pickleball court put in that little half court, is there?
Not if there's a full court basketball court, although we
It's a
could,
half a court right now.
or I'm sorry.
it's a half court.
Thank you. I meant if
That's
the
okay.
full court is used for basketball for
Yeah,
what's
because then
there.
we can't have the low net.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, but it's a good question. So yeah, we'll look into the shade.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead. Paul.
You don't have to go back to the Hamilton Park, but
Yeah.
For Community Day, if you're gonna turf the field, are you gonna allow vehicles to be driving on the turf? Because I don't think I've ever seen like a large vehicle driving on a turf, I'm assuming the turf's gonna have that chrome rubber
Right.
and everything on it, correct?
Yeah, so no, anything that enters the field is going to be on a cart, which we prefer now. That's why we rent golf carts for the day. So when able, we are asking people to unload onto a cart, even if it's like a gator with a back
Right.
or a golf cart, and then get ferried over there. We do have to plan for access for equipment if we need to dig into the hillside or something with public works equipment, but that's why we try to leave enough of a ribbon of a trail
Right.
that you wouldn't have to get on the turf itself. So that's the plan. Good. Dan?
This young lady was talking about the field.
Yes.
Hamilton, she mentioned a couple times 1.5 million for that material. And, you, when you first started the meeting, you mentioned 2 million. Is there, did you change that number from 2 to 1.5?
Pause. Let's get it from the actual spreadsheet so we know what's we're talking about here.
Yeah, I took my number from the first list that
So,
we got from the engineer.
so yeah,
And that probably didn't take into consideration some of the other things they might have added in with the playgrounds or whatever.
yeah, so I have it
last
all.
Meeting, so it went up, and it'll go up a lot more before you build it.
Now, will that have drainage under it,
Yeah,
under the
that's-
turf, like?
I can speak to that. The majority of the cost of the actual field is the drainage underneath of it. So that stormwater pipe that runs over is about 30 foot deep. So you can imagine what it takes for us to update that, and fix anything. Underneath. So the actual turf itself, the cost isn't for the final, the actual turf on top. The majority of that cost is actually, that's how the water issue down there is solved. Because underneath it is the stormwater system to hold, to maintain safely back in this, that is underneath it. The water issue of increased runoff is actually not.
But just so folks are aware, and I'm sorry for folks online, I just moved over to a spreadsheet here, but I'll just read from it. So for Lower Hamilton, the first 2 line items here, earthwork and grading, as well as AstroTurf surfacing, if you were to add those together, that's a little over 1.5 million. So that's not a bad number. Apologies if I was rounding up and maybe including some other things. So let's go with that number, 1.5 million. We'll go back to the presentation here.
Question for the engineer, what is the longevity of that field? For the material, what do you look for on the lifespan of that?
I'd have to give you the typical engineer answer. We have to go with the actual manufacturer where it goes. It was a fantastic example of what I mentioned out to Pleasant Hills, they have brand new field. So we're seeing that's been up for about 7 years now. But yeah, the idea of it being the 10 to 20, that could be a possibility. I don't want to tell you that's not a possibility.
The manufacturer doesn't give you any.
They do. I
Warranty
just
or
I have to
anything?
apologize. I don't have that answer on me. So I can
Plus,
get-
it's in constant sun, so that could maybe break it down a little
So
bit
I can-
faster.
I can have a sense of work if that can work for him tomorrow morning, so we can have that.
Yeah.
directly to you folks as fast as
We
possible.
did verify that, let's say there is damage from a vehicle or something that's kind of a spot issue, you are able to simply replace a piece, so you're not rolling up the whole thing. So there, you kind of like a rug, you could stitch in the same carpet into the same place. So it's not like you have to undo the whole project. So, right.
And honestly, if you're looking at talking about the future of Castle Shannon, and you're trying to bring in, we'll call them clientele, these are the things that are gonna do it. Not a grass field with one ability to play ball on, that's it. If you don't have something like this, I mean, honestly, what else does Castle Shannon have? And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm talking as a 41-year-old guy with a 13 and 11-year-old. What's drawing me into Castle Shannon? And I'll be honest, I'd love to hear it. Go ahead.
Well, I speak with some authority because I was a real estate agent for 30 years.
Okay.
And in all that time, people pick communities for lots of different reasons. And, an artificial turf field would be way, way down on that list. I know we don't have the amenities like Bethel or Scott Township or Mount Lebanon. We could win the lottery, we wouldn't be able to do that because geographically we don't have it. The problem I have with this plan, and I was on the planning commission that from the beginning, is that I am all for having a vibrant community with a youth association, and I think that is vitally important for families. But what you have to understand is that that's a small portion of the residential population. And that this plan from the get-go has been very heavily sports orientated, and it leaves out other residents, kids who are not in team sports, older residents, dog walkers, and the people who use those fields and the parks on a daily basis. And that's why I'm more for the programming, because I'd like to see our community be concerned about community health in general and getting people, and COVID actually jump-started that a little bit. There's more people that use that park now on a daily basis. I don't know, is anybody else here from California? I mean, there's people down there walking at 8 o'clock in the morning in the snow because they got used to doing that during COVID. And so there are people down there, every day, all year long. And those are the people who I think are underrepresented. And
But I
I
think
don't
the
want to
thing
see
is-
these plans be completely orientated toward the smaller segment of the population.
I think the thing you're missing here is nothing's changed that they can't do that. You're enhancing. You're giving a upgrade for somebody like me moving in going, man, I'm gonna have kids someday. Look at what they have for my kids. Look at what they have, the ability. We're gonna have a splash park. I mean, there's the upper Hamilton has nothing to do with sports. They're building it up so you want to bring your youth here. Man, as a 41, I go up and play at the splash park. That stuff seems weird. Okay. Before anybody says anything, okay, what you're saying. I'm not a big swimmer, okay? But I would enjoy that, like going up there, seeing that. This isn't just about the sports, and trust me, I get where you're coming from, but whether we like it or not, we have to look at enticing people to want to move here too. And this is something where, like you said, the Bethel Parks, the Scott Townships, the Mount Lebanons. Okay, let's stay status quo. Well, we're not going to get those people because they're going to go to Bethel Park, Scott Township, Mount Lebanon. Not that this is saying, hey, we're not upper echelon, but we're really investing in Castle Shannon to show what we want to be. We don't want to stay status quo. We want to bring people in. Heck with Green Tree. Heck with, Scott Township, whatever means Green Tree. But, we want those people here.
I agree
We're not
with your
getting them.
philosophy. I don't think a vinyl carpet is the way to go. So
It's
that's
not about
what we-
apartment,
that's
and
what we
allow
do.
them people to use it all year long.
So let's
Oh,
move
yeah,
on.
okay.
Let's get someone else. Yep, please.
Hi.
Hi, come on.
My name is Megan, and my
Thanks.
husband's Jared, and I live on Laurel Street right up here. And wanted to talk about Chestnut for a second. Sorry
Sure.
to distract from Hamilton.
That's okay.
But since there were the improvements on Chestnut, we've seen an influx of people using the park, which is great. When we see people, all ages there, people driving and parking whenever we're there. So it's wonderful, but the concerns are, there's no sidewalk from Poplar to Chestnut on either side of that road. And people are speeding through, and there's more people around, and it's hard to walk from that stretch. So
Maybe a
what's the
speed bump.
consideration for any type of sidewalk being put in there?
Yeah. Yes. So I'm pleased to report that every year we earmark $25,000 for some sidewalk improvement. And then we're always looking for excuses to add more, get grants and expand upon it. One of our challenges as a community is that we have allowed, from a zoning perspective, we've allowed folks to build parking pads in immediate adjacency to the street, which means that there's no room for widening, and you would be taking, even if it's their 7th car, you would be taking a parking spot away. There are communities that forbid that practice, that don't allow for that. So all I'll say is I agree 100%. There are some structural limitations on certain corridors. Myrtle, the enhancement to Myrtle, I trust has been fantastic. We see it all the time. So that was one where thankfully we could make that enhancement, and we had neighbors that were amenable to allowing that easement to be used for that. So I would just say we're as opportunistic as we can be for expanding that. But I appreciate the comment. Yes,
Maybe they could put speed bumps because we have the school right here. I mean, it might be a very easy thing to maybe get the state even to pay for, something that, you know, we have the school right here with the playground down here. We need like 4 speed.
yeah.
It might help slow people
Oh.
down.
There's that sign there, the flashing sign.
But I mean, yeah, but if they're banging up the bottom of their car, maybe.
Well, in just in
might
that
be an idea.
spirit, if that police chief were here, he would say the same thing, which is speed bumps are great until you're driving a fire truck, until you're driving an
Oh.
ambulance, until you're
Okay.
driving a school bus,
Yeah, that makes
until you're
sense.
driving.
Yeah.
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 So just know that all of the plows that pay
Okay.
will break a plow pretty much immediately.
All right. That's a little-
But that's not to say we don't, like, that is why we invest in things like speed signs and other slowing. And there's traffic calming.
In that vein, if we go to the library, I have sitting and relaxing and reading because Myrtle Avenue is like a speedway. So I don't see people sitting in front of the library, dragging their chairs around the front of the library.
Well, will the chairs still be sort of anchored somehow? They can't just be picked up and taken away, right?
Well, no, they're thought of as kind of lawn furniture upscaled simply because you do want to be able to allow people to, if there's 5 kids in a family,
Mhm.
pull 5 chairs together for your family and not fixed configurations. But I think, you know, traffic calming generally, you can accomplish that without a physical impediment. It can be signage, it can be traffic paint. There are some innovative ways to do that. Heather.
Just, I'm Heather Meyer, the library director. With COVID, we did hold programming outside. We did do bring your own chair book discussions. I didn't see a problem with traffic. And also, right now, the gazebo is out there. So we have a lot of families that, when the weather's nice, they come get their books and they sit outside. Also with the free lunch program that the school district offers, a lot of people come back to the library, enjoy their lunch here, and then, you know, do some programming. So I don't see that traffic is an issue up there. And what I was imagining for like seating is like panoramic chairs, the colorful ones that you can pick up, different sizes. There's kid sizes, adult sizes that you can, that they're movable.
Mhm.
So that was one of the ideas.
Thank you. All right, now remember, we do have one more portion of the event this evening. So final questions or comments on the parks portion of this evening?
I have one.
Go ahead, Nancy.
We will be maintaining the security cameras and all the parks that we have now.
If
I
not
know there's a
expanding,
Question about vandalism and stuff.
yes.
We do have a pretty efficient camera system.
What a-
And
Time frame.
the one real lapse that I see is senior citizens appear to be left out of any kind of planning. We don't have any kind of a senior citizen gathering spot in Castle Shannon or like other communities. So I know it's probably not part of a park, but you know, in the borough building to have a room for the seniors and, or if you're gonna take the gymnasium on, you know, we did do a plan several years ago to take, you know, redo the gymnasium to a senior rental, all-purpose room. So I think that we need to look at that also. I don't know where we put it, but, you know, there's, you know, seniors seem to be left out of the planning, and we do have a lot of them.
Well, and let's talk about that group. So when you were designing a space to work for seniors, and this is rhetorical, I don't have the answer here, but you want to be thinking about what are the design specifics you need out of that space. So how seniors have used the borough facilities to date. We used to have, I believe, a card group or a bridge group. We have some folks here. Someone keeps coming off mute, sorry. Obviously, event rentals, if they had a group that wanted to do that. You have auxiliary spaces like the basement of the library, like the upstairs room in the municipal center, the downstairs 2 rooms in the municipal center, that can accommodate 20, 25 people, non-COVID conditions. The borough has partnered with the fire department such that if there was a senior-oriented activity, we now can use the fire department's facilities to do that. The fire department, let's not forget about their programming. Their bingo is wildly attended in the best way and could still stand to have more. So I think the issue is that we haven't been ignoring the seniors. Every single park has a walking trail and has, while we can include for the smaller parks, we want to improve access, but just having a safe place to know the distance that you're walking and having seating along the way, that's a senior oriented decision. Having parking and handicap parking that's proximate to all these amenities, that's a senior oriented decision. Things like turf fields with their downside, I promise you they're more accessible than grass. Take someone with a cane. You think they want to walk on grass like that? Take someone with a wheelchair. Are they going to risk it? Figure they might get caught somewhere that's not a flat surface. That's an accessibility issue. So just know that, that is part of the plan. And if someone can find me a configurable space that's more senior friendly than a room like this or a room that we already have at the borough, we're all ears. I just haven't heard what it is. I don't know the specs any differently.
I
Donnell?
just want to say, programming wise at the library, we have craft afternoon in the afternoons. And then Heather said the whole discussion at 11 a.m. So those are some activities that are also available during the day.
All right, so I want to sunset the parks portion. We do have a final module here. So thank you all for that feedback. So what you saw in the budget is that there's a financial component of the bond package for the wayfinding system. The portion that was in the budget does not pay for all of it. That 100,000 pays for the enhancements that will happen on the downtown portion where the streetscape work is happening this spring. So just know that that's the number that's earmarked for that purpose. What we want to talk about tonight regarding wayfinding is what does wayfinding do for a community? And then also the design that has gone through to the point where we're ready to approve it, but we're getting one final pass. And we want to look at how can we look at some legacy images that we use in the borough and see if those would be suitable, or if we want to move towards the adoption of a new image and some new imagery for the borough to make use of. So high level, why is wayfinding important? Again, imagine if you don't live here and you don't know that you can't turn left off of Castle Shannon Boulevard. Sorry. Oh, you don't live here. Yeah. We have some confounding geometries in our traffic grid. We have some confounding geographies, high to low. Anytime you have transit that is going right through your town, you have some difficulties. So directional hints where things are relative to where you are really important. Knowing where you are when you've arrived, or even where to park in order to get to a certain place, it's really important to communicate that effectively to people. And then it also has the idea of how do we talk about ourselves? How do we identify as a place you want to eat, work, play, spend money, buy a home? There's an entire branding dimension to this that it kind of sleeps under the utility parts of it, but it's a really important part of what this is. These aren't any specific places other than these are examples of directional signage. You've probably seen them at malls or on vacation or when you're in other towns, but these are examples of where people invest to look modern, to look sleek, to be effective, to help people understand where they are. ADA compliance, it's visible. You can see it at night. It's traffic friendly. It's locally, it's PennDOT approved. These are all things that are part of signage design systems, and you have to check all those boxes. So it's more than just a logo. There's a lot of science behind it as well. So that's high level, but what do we care about in Castle Shannon? So again, we have some odd traffic patterns in light of our streets and with the T punctuating us. So being able to navigate traffic but also as a pedestrian, be able to navigate those areas is really important. We are due for a freshening of our look. And we'll look at what we've done historically, but we have not tried to modernize, and it is to our detriment when we're trying to attract businesses, new families, or simply just look like we're current, we're effective, we're investing. It's important that you signal that in certain ways. We do have assets here. Obviously, if the parks plan goes through, we want to scream it from the rooftops that we have a water amenity, we can accommodate leagues, we have, I didn't even call attention to it, there are horseshoe pits and cornhole pits and all this stuff that's going in our parks, available to all ages. We need to be able to talk about those effectively. Another understated thing, safety. If your signage is effective, you're helping people get to where they're going and through safe routes. When people get lost, it gets dangerous. And if you've ever been on 88 and watched someone try to navigate 88 thinking, oh, this sidewalk will go completely to where I want to go, and then find out that it does not, and they're trying to dodge traffic or, God forbid, cross over 88, that's bad wayfinding. They should have been alerted somehow that this does not continue. This is not a pedestrian throughway. So there are a lot of instances like that where we have to clean those up. But it's important to say that we have some things here that we want to preserve. We have history, we have colors, we have ideas. So there's no reason why anything new has to lose the charm that's here. They're not mutually exclusive. So the concept that has advanced to date is the adoption of a new wayfinding symbol. It doesn't replace our existing symbol. It's simply a new one that we're introducing. And it's a Celtic knot. Castle Shannon has an Irish history. Of course, we're more diverse than one single ethnicity. But our history goes back to land grants, and our naming convention comes back from someone who was in Ireland and may have been named after a castle. There's lore there that makes reference to Shannon or Castle Shanahan. There's lore there. Celtic knot is a really beautiful, honestly, icon that has meanings around friendship, love, community, togetherness, good luck, good health, prosperity. It has no religious affiliation. It's more of a cultural understanding of togetherness. And it's kind of beautiful in its simplicity. Celtic knots can look like a lot of things. There's a lot of people that have tattoos of Celtic knots, or if they go to an Irish festival, there's some that look like crucifixes. There's some that look in different ways. This has no religious affiliation or connotation. This is a shape that's been derived from other Celtic knots to not have any of that implied, but it still has the meaning behind it that kind of transcends from a singular cultural background. So when we look at signage, we have to look at different types of signage. So when we're welcoming people to the community via routes like Route 88, or even our connective corridors from, say, Grove Road from Whitehall, or from Mount Lebanon on Mount Lebanon Boulevard, these are the types of signs that would greet people. It still uses our classic green. It still uses our gold that has been featured. The font styling still has, if you're a nerd, you know this is a serif font, so it has kind of the ornature letters on the ends. So it's not super modern, but it's clean, and it communicates something. It's refreshed. It looks like kind of a new look. So the rendering on the left is representative of gateway signage that would happen along 88 in 3 different places. One would be as you exit the city of Pittsburgh near Killarney, 6th Street, 6th Ave. The other side where Connor Road, turn left from Connor Road onto 88. And then the other is as you get into downtown. So it would be proximate to, there's across from Mindful Brewery, there's a corner there that has a grassy area. That would likely be where there's a location. There's a chance that an adapted form of this could go at the triangle area outside of Mr. Magic Car Wash as well, as it's an odd piece of property for many reasons, but there's good place for directional signage and a welcoming message. The smaller one would be where the existing smaller ones that say welcome to Castle Shannon are. Similar color scheme, similar scale, but it makes use of that new icon. It's worth saying that the background here, where you see like the white and the symbol behind it, that's actually an etching. It's not a white background, it's see-through. So it's on white here, but it's this really neat look where you etched out the metal using a water jet. and it has a really nice aesthetic and finish. It's kind of sleek in that most signs are very opaque and very like in your face. This one you see through it, so it doesn't feel as ostentatious to you. It also has a really important function to it, which is that we have busy streets. So you can actually see through and you can see things behind it. So if you're driving on 88 and you're peering over to the right at the sign, you actually should have a sight line that can kind of show you the rest of the road behind it if you were to turn right. So visibility through it is actually part of its design, and that's kind of a neat nod. It's unique. Some other signs within the sign family. So to the left is an example of a directional sign. So something, hey, you've met a point where you have to decide where to go. We can show arrows to where those items are. So that's a front and a back rendering. For location based, so that would be the borough building, the library, any of our parks. You get this really low but stylized version, and it's very welcoming. We do not have a standard means of identifying our parks right now, and park systems that are well designed usually have markers that are consistent throughout their municipalities. You see an example of a parking sign as well. No secret here, no one knows where to park in downtown. So really important that we have directional signage that's clear. Where do you park? How do you find it effectively? And then even just to show an example of what a street sign would look like. You've seen communities that have invested a lot of money in putting like a really tiny Upper St. Clair sign on theirs, but you can't even read it. Whereas here we can actually use this beautiful Celtic knot and use that same etching design, and it brings that little touch of character to every street while still keeping that classic green. Very legible, it's still traffic compliant. But I don't know if you've seen it. I mean, there are some street signs here that look like they're going to rust over and fall over. We can't have that, just practically, but also aesthetically. It shows we don't care. So we need to invest in those ways. So this is the full signage family. I kind of broke it up into pieces for you just to see it. Plus or minus some tweaks. There are still, for example, it's being considered that the library would receive a form of digital sign so that they can show their programs instead of having those just one letter at a time or one event at a time with the letters. So we can do stuff like that. That would be a riff off of this, but still within the design family. But I want to get at the elephant in the room, which is there are people that have been here. Wrong elephant. All right. There are people that have been here, certainly longer than me, that they're saying, but wait, this is part of our history. And you may have seen some mixture of these symbols previously. So you've got the fire department emblem down here, the borough building. That was our old logo on our website on the upper left. You even see some private sector with Castle Shannon Coal. So there's no doubt that the castle icon is part of our history, and it will remain. There are some things. You see the police patch up above. I got news for you. Our police, they have no interest in changing their patch, and I don't think they should. There's a lot of pride in that. Our fire department, they're their own organization. I hope they keep the castle. I hope that that's on your trucks forever, ever more. There's no reason to change it, but we can add some things that enhance it further. It does not all have to be uniform. And this is a perfect example of it's never been uniform. There's derivatives of this all through history. And it seems like we get kind of a new riff every maybe 5 or 10 years. But there are some practical limitations too. So I've been asked to show what does our castle look like in this same signage format. And there's a few limitations that are evident. So these are pixel for pixel, the same scale. The legibility of the one above is not there. You would call a design like that hyper realistic. Because it shows every little inch and cranny of the hillside that's premised in that photo. That's not how design is done, especially for digital, especially for large format. You need to be able to see something and know immediately what it is. We as neighbors, you've seen our trucks, you've seen Public Works, you know it's a castle, it's a castle, but we're not talking about just us. We need it to be recognizable to everyone. And this is a way to be unique. And I promise you, you haven't seen that shape in any other municipality. This is something that's totally novel for what we're trying to do. This is just another instance, the same side by side. That hyper realism washes out the impact of that logo. So it doesn't mean it doesn't have a place here. It already has a place here. We're just finding some other ways to enhance it so that we bring some character in. This is in the built format, but I want to talk about some others. So as I mentioned, that upper left icon, that is from our old website. So you guys may remember this, like our old, and I mean old. I mean, that is not a digital friendly format whatsoever. It breaks every rule as far as what a designer would say you should do on a device. And we have a 311 app that's coming live in April, where you'll be able to interact with Public Works and say, I have a pothole on my street and here's where it is. I've created 2 icons. They're not labeled appropriately, but this is what the icon might look like if we kept the castle. And here's what it might look like if we use the knob. And bear in mind, put that next to the other icons you guys use in your daily life, YouTube, text messaging, what have you. What is consistent here? It's easy design, it's rounded shapes, it's not hyper-realism, it's simplicity. It's something that takes away the nuance and tries to make it recognizable. Not to mention, I mean, this is a really portable image. Like, who wouldn't want that on a ball cap, right? Like, your sports teams can wear that. You can have a polo with that. This type of banner here, which is an adaptation on the signage, that would look great on the footer of a website or the header of the website, on an event flyer, which increasingly are digital and not just in print. We have to think about all of those different uses when we choose icons that we want to adopt. And I just think we're selling ourselves short if we're not willing to rethink some of that. I want to just close this segment, then we'll open up for questions. There are some communities that are doing this really well. It's rare, I have to tell you. I geek out about this all the time. Is anybody from Etna? I'm just curious, or ever lived in Etna? So this is the original. Yeah.
I lived in that for like 2 years.
So this is the original seal of Etna. Okay. So not unlike our original castle. And I got news for you. It's hyper realistic. It looks like a pile of rocks. I don't even know what it is, to be honest with you, but it looks like a pile of rocks.
I was gonna say a volcano.
So they've had this. And if you go to Etna's website, they still have this on their website, meaning that's still in their header. They've done some new fonts around it, but here's what they've done with their community. They've said, we can complement the history and still identify as a really happening place to be. So this entire signage motif, they've adopted a new image of the waterfowl here, which they're a waterfront community. They have a lot of stormwater issues in Etna. They're an eco district now. So what have they done? They've taken their water asset and they've taken their eco district designation and they've turned that into a marquee piece of their history and they put it on a sign. And then they completely changed the look and feel for the purposes of signage. And they've said, we can go with a sleeker font. We can pick kind of an earthy industrial looking sign, but I got news for you. It's pretty. I just drove through there today. It looks good. And which community do you think welcomes you better? If we're just being honest, the signage that we have today and the icon we have today, or is it something like this?
I think our signs entering Castle Shannon are beautiful, right, the way they are. The one coming from Bonner Road this way, the one coming toward us from Killarney, they're beautiful signs. Now, again, they may look a little like another communities, but they are beautiful signs.
So I said I'll end with this and I want to open it to the room. I just want folks to know that there is nothing that Etna has done that we cannot do for ourselves. And we actually have more assets, in my opinion, but more assets to embrace in investment in a wayfinding system than even Etna has now. So missed opportunity if we're not willing to really think that way. That's my opinion. So I'll open it up. Same rules apply. Raise your hand if you're online or raise your hand if you're in the room. So let's start here.
Hi, I came to this thinking that I really don't want to have the castle changed. But I agree that on certain things, the county lot is nice, although a lot of people won't even know what it is. But I think it's very clean and very pretty. But I still would like to see the council places as well. Not just on the truck, but on a sign or something here and there, just because it's nice. I like castles. So, but I do think the whole idea is clean and native, we can do both.
Understood. Thank you. Who else? Deb? Yeah, Debbie.
The larger signs that would be on 88, are they gonna be visible?
So not from within. If anything, it would be projected onto, which is actually cost savings to the borough. If you integrate lighting, it's a much more expensive production, but we'll likely be lighting them from below.
From below, so like solar connected.
It very well could be, yes.
And by etching, you mean laser cut?
Yes,
So that's what, okay.
yes, that's what
I
you're
was just
looking
trying
at.
to get a good.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dan.
Could use the word a sec.
Oh, yeah, what do you want me to go to?
No, that's good. That's
Oh, okay.
exactly where it needs to be.
Okay.
Okay, so what would everybody think about this part moving up? So you don't have the white border there. And then you have a piece coming across here with your old style castle. So you have your castle for a big sign. And you also have your Celtic model, which it is a cleaner look, but I say the big sign in downtown Shannon must have the castle on it.
I think it'd be an eyesore. I honestly think if you're truly trying to make this a sleek, nice look, all you're doing is adding extra pieces. I get what you're saying about the castle, but I'm not gonna lie. Again, I'm gonna go back to summer rec. They give my kids something and it had a castle on it. And guess what? You never saw one person wear it. You never saw it. You saw water bottles thrown away. The castle's wonderful. It's a history. But I think we're trying to cling on like it's something that everybody thinks of us as. They don't. I never thought about that when I moved in here. I didn't. I'm not gonna lie to you. You're not changing the castle. You're just adding to it.
Well,
Deb?
you're wrong. We moved because of the uniqueness of the Catholic Church. And we like what we have in the community. Now, I see, when I look at your signs, I am Irish. And I'm involved in many Irish clubs and organizations. That Celtic, a lot of people do not know what that is. And I'll be honest with you, it's right on that side. But if you put the castle over to the left, where the burial castle is on the left, it gives the indication. Now, we're gonna take away the history. You're young. There are people who are 90 years old, who live in Shannon, who raised in Shannon. To take the castle away from you, that's history.
But you're not taking it away. You're
Yes,
not. That's
yes,
the
you
difference.
are, to a certain degree, you are.
What signs have castles on them? I'm just asking, what castles? What
On
signs?
88, the ones on 88
Yeah.
corner.
Two, that's it.
Yeah, we don't have any signs.
And it's on everything we do. It's on our letterhead. It's on fire department, public works, the police, everything. has
So-
a castle.
So what I'm hearing is we wouldn't not have it.
Exactly.
It would be around.
I have a problem with the Celtic knot also. You know, if you really investigate the history of the Celtic knot, it was a pagan symbol adopted by the Scottish Irish. A lot of the knots represent various clans and stuff. Then it morphed into a symbol of Christianity. And then it morphed into something sometimes a little sinister. So, you know, we were founded by a lot of nationalities, a lot of Germans, a lot of Slovaks. Now we're very diverse. So to have a symbol that is considered Irish or Celtic, I think is misleading and not a symbol of diversity, and it's not a symbol of friendship and unity and et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, Keystone Oaks School District was, you know, the key for Dormont, the
Oak for the tree.
Stone for the
Stone
castle,
for the
castle
castle.
shield.
Castle for rock for castle, or Keystone, the stone
Yeah.
for castle. So, you know, the castle plays an important role, you know, and I appreciate your artwork, Mark, but, you know, you're showing us what the designer did. You're no designer. So I'm sure that a designer could come up with a more
Clean, a
appropriate.
clean castle, maybe something that would be
Well,
more digitally workable, you know what I mean? Something that maybe wouldn't have quite so much detail on it.
it's worth saying, we've run this experiment. How many more castles do you need
Well,
to
you're
see?
not a designer, Mark.
I
One of the
not
things.
thankfully
Before
have,
These things, these,
You
you know,
see-
I'm sure a modern designer could come up with some.
Or even that 100-year logo, like if you put that in.
in.
That looks like a kid's drawing.
a modern designer did this, a modern designer did this. And by the way, a modern designer did this, trying to keep the historic nature of it. So again, we've run this experiment. And by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, and it's okay if you have this opinion. If you like the castle, do you want it to change at all? And I have a feeling you don't. And I'm just saying, because the people that tell me they want the castle, they don't want to see it turned into a Super Mario Brothers castle.
No, the one on the bottom left that the fire department has on their vehicles, that's apparently a newer rendition of it, and that's just beautiful.
And I think they should keep it. But why should
I
we,
think
why
we
should
should
we
too.
water it down? Why would I take that away from the fire department? Why would I, why would? Just, I mean, can we think, and I'm not asking anyone to speak, doesn't want to speak, but if I were a firefighter, would I want something that's distinctive and unique on my truck? Or do I want something that looks like every other sign? I don't want something that's commoditized. I want it to be mine. I want it to be representing our organization.
Martha, why don't you keep the signs the same way then? If you're feeling that way, which, I can't speak for everybody, but I feel, keep it. You know, they're not like, you know, Nancy was saying it's true. You know, that's the symbol of Castle Shannon. The signs are great. I do like it. You know, maybe put the council to the left like they to the bar. I understand what you're saying about seeing them through it. That's unique. But you have to realize there's still Castle Shannon. Yes, they see the word Castle Shannon. They have no idea where Castle Shannon came from or what we represent.
Probably. Al, you had something.
All I can say is this simplicity, cleanness grabs me somehow.
Yeah.
And I think it's really beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And you're not gonna get that with a.
And I
castle.
disagree with you on a lot of things, but not this one.
Thank you.
Looks good.
That's what being colleagues is about. We have, I want to make time for our digital friends here. So Chuck Christ, Chuck, if you want to unmute, the floor is yours. Chuck, if you can hear me, I can help you unmute, maybe. All right, Chuck, keep working on it. I'm going to move to Eileen O'Malley. Oh, wait, sorry, Chuck, can you try speaking?
I got it now.
Yes, speak out. All right, good.
Just want to say I'm proud of all that's being done. I'm a long life resident myself for over 60 years. I do love the signs. I love the new designs and all. But I was wondering maybe if we could put it up to give other people chances for designs, say like the schools maybe, just to get other people involved. It's just an idea, and I was just wondering if that might work for everybody too.
Okay. Well, we appreciate the comment, Chuck. Thank you.
Could you repeat that?
He just had said he really likes the designs. He would love to find ways to get more people involved in it. And he had suggested maybe you allow the schools to participate in a design iteration process. So, okay. And then Eileen, you are up.
Thanks, Mark. I just will go back to the fact that you were not born or raised here. I don't think you understand the history. I think the Celtic knot signs are nice and clean, but there's no reason why we can't do them with a castle on them. I have no objection to that. And I don't believe that you went to your designer and asked for a castle and they told you they couldn't do it. You never asked for the renderings in the beginning, and now you don't want to spend the money for the renderings because you've made up your mind. And so you did one, and I have to apologize, I didn't see the renderings because I am working this evening. But I don't think it's fair that you didn't have the renderings done with the castle when asked by your colleagues and others in the borough to have them done. I will go back to the fact that the Celtic knot is an Irish symbol, and in that sense, you are leaving out every other ethnicity in our borough, and we have become a very multi-ethnic borough. And I think by doing that, you're just, those that are not Irish are excluded. And that's it. I just don't understand why we can't do both. For those of us that have the history here, that have lived here, this means a great deal to us. And I don't understand why we can't make it as both, with your clean, sleek design and with a castle in between Borough of and Castle Shannon.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I will say, if we're keen about trying to find icons and language that have no cultural significance at all, we would be renaming Castle Shannon. We would remove the castle. Gentlemen, yeah, please.
Well, isn't Castle Shannon Irish?
100%.
That kind of stuff. And the second thing, do we have to have an icon?
Well, I mean, the Etna signage, some of which you saw, doesn't always have to have a logo or an icon with it. So,
Everybody has a problem with icons.
But-
I understand you don't want to have, maybe somebody has that symbol means something to them.
yeah, and just from a practical note, I mean, symbols are useful for other reasons. You could see that icon showing up on a map. As again, I'm trying to show you in other places where text doesn't work in all formats the same way that an icon that's associated with text would. So I wouldn't say every instance of the logo or a borough item would need a logo, but it is useful as an accompaniment. Debbie?
I'm not gonna weigh in on Castle or Celtic Knot. I mean, that's for, you guys to decide, but I actually think whatever graphic you pick, it should be even larger. Because if you're going down 88 at 40 miles an hour, you have to think of that sign with like a whole lot of other signs. The graphic is what hits you. That's what you identify with. That's your branding. So if anything, I think that should be more prominent. And because you can't copyright the font for the Castle Shannon, so this sign can be among, Castle Shannon Auto Body, Castle Shannon Bakery, Castle Shannon, whatever. But the graphic you can copyright, and then you can use it on everything. So it's a very important part of branding. So whatever way you go is up, for further discussion. But I really think that the graphic needs to even be, more prominent and used. I really like the street signs with the thing on the end because the balance of that is more visible. So
Thank you.
just something to consider.
Sorry,
Annie.
instead of telling not the street sign, how about a CS? Simple CS in the corner and the name of the street, Myrtle Avenue.
What is?
Very, very simple.
You're welcome to feel that way. Go ahead.
I actually just wanted to mention the street signs. I mean, I know that it would be expensive to do all the street signs, but I mean, at least in a revitalized corridor, just to start with. And I think it's so nice when you're driving around neighborhoods, suburbs of Pittsburgh, and you see how, and some of them have ornate signposts, some have signs that aren't exactly rectangular. I think this is nice because you kind of you can still use the general rectangle. You're not replacing the post, but you're making it unique. And I mean, when I drive around those neighborhoods, I don't know anything about their government. I don't know anything about their road programs, but I look at those signs and I go, that's a place that cares. Like they care about how their place looks.
Yes.
And honestly, they could probably have potholes all over their roads, but I'd see the darn sign and go, that's a place that really cares about how their neighborhood looks. So I think when you were saying, wayfinding about how people see it who aren't in the area, I get that when I drive around those neighborhoods. And I think that they care that they have a unifying thing. So I really like that idea, and the keeping it a rectangle is probably very economical. And
thank you.
It's a sense of charm.
yes,
And unity is uniform across the neighborhood. Really, this is our community. There's our stuff.
Yes. I
Yeah,
agree.
that's what branding is. Yeah.
Yep. Just to address something that was shared, There were suggestions around an alternative castle. And there were designs that were created as an attempt. But what we quickly found is that the people who were advocating for castles didn't want it to change at all. And so, and again, I think we've heard that in the room today, is either it must be a castle or it must be that castle. Those two thoughts, it's more people are saying it must be that castle versus it must be a castle. So there is no design work to be done. There is no other idea to be had if that's where we're landing. People just don't want it to change. And again, I'm not here to say you're welcome to have that opinion, but I will not be able to produce a sign with a castle on it that is going to make those who have the longest tenure here, they're not going to be happy with that. And we're just got to be honest.
But it isn't also funny, the people that want to keep a castle, or the people that were born here and grew up here, and I moved away for a number of years and now I'm back. Love the community and can't go away from not having a castle. Have to have a castle.
Okay. And not a castle, that castle. Just to be clear, just to be clear.
Just so it's.
Which has water around it.
Fire department.
Please comment.
Is this an all or nothing where there's this kind of contract where you have to 100% all new signage, or are you able to combine, like you mentioned, some of the signs are usually in good condition, like the transition of starting downtown with the new signs, and then, as the current signs deteriorate, then some of them were, as we evolve, in time, or is it involved at the same time?
Good question. So a wayfinding system benefits from being comprehensive, which is for all the reasons we had said. You want it to look consistent when you enter, to when you go to downtown, to when you enter a park, to whether you enter the library. You want it to all look the same. Do all the signs need to be bought, built, and installed in the same time? They do not. But the goal is that you are committing to a system. It's not a logo. You're committing to a system of wayfinding. And it's not unlike, and I think folks here can think this one through, if we wanted to crowdsource what Paul's next haircut was going to be. I got news for you. We're all going to have different ideas, and Paul's not probably going to be very happy at the end of the day.
Probably not.
And design is like that, which is everyone will have their opinion, and you may have the long tenured residents feel a certain way, the new and up and coming residents feel a different way, or let's be honest, it's muddled. I mean, even just in this room, I'm seeing residents who maybe came thinking one way, now think another way. Some people with gray hair might feel one way. Some people with different type of hair feel a different way. So it's muddled. And I think we'd be lying to ourselves if we said, my type of demographic is uniformly wanting blank. So let's not kid ourselves. It's more complicated than that. And anytime we're talking about design, it's not going to be a uniform opinion. And that's why it's not something where you just throw out a poll and say, well, whatever the vote is, because guess what? It's going to be crap. We care about the feedback. That's why we're here. We've done 2 of these already. We care about the feedback, but we still need to value what people who do this for a living say. People who do design in and out every day of their lives. And we've gone through multiple iterations. I could show you PowerPoints that went to council with original formats that look very different than this. We have 8 different designs that came through committee that were refined. So this, you're seeing it at a late stage, because if we just started with, well, what do you like? You like a flag, you like a little man, you like a soldier, it would happen that way. And it's just human nature. We all have different likes and wants.
We never saw a design with Park Castle.
But tonight you did. Tonight you did.
No, I really didn't.
Ta-da.
We see what Mark has made.
Thanks.
We don't see we sit on council, we never saw a presentation from the designer of a castle.
Because the designer says they cannot make a castle that would keep the character of what this has and still check the design parameters. I don't know how else to explain that to you. It'd be like asking a mechanic to somehow fit a rock into your undercarriage.
I've told you 10 times, your designer's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about, because I've talked to designers and architects who can put a castle on that sign right there,
Well,
to the left of the word borough.
It's not a
Slide
question
borough
of
over.
can, it's about discretion. It's about, do they have taste? Do they have standards? Are they trying to amplify?
Still like to see a rendition of it.
You have it right here. I
No, I
promise.
don't. No, I don't.
We have Mark's computer slapping up.
Well, you can bring Nancy's computer next time because
Okay.
this is what you have.
And yeah, when you're talking directional signs, we'll go by the wayside a little bit. You know, when you're really driving through a town and looking for directions, even this morning, I don't think you need any logo on it because that's just a distraction from what the information you're trying to get from that sign. When you have directional signs.
So you're saying like that municipal complex, that stuff on the top is enough? You don't need the logo on the bottom, just like the regular street signs.
Yeah.
The one on it.
Yeah, I think the design with I really like the P is the one, my favorite one, because you got kind of I know what that means.
Yeah.
It has the detail that I like in it, and it doesn't have anything that's distracting, such as and that's even like, if you took away that green on the listing sign, I think it'd be fine. Now, like even I keep looking at like the real park sign and the main sign that everybody's upset about. And even if you just had that gold line there, or even if it was like a square or diamond or some random, like very generic shape, I think that'd be fine. I think when you add that element to it, it looks nice. I like it. However, though, I think that's a point of contention. Even if you just leave it as just like a general design thing, we can talk about design for hours and hours. But I like the idea, and I don't know if anybody, we've not really talked about the scroll work that's in there. Like that's a unique scroll work, which I think that's great. And that could be the Celtic mod. It could be whatever we want to make it. It could be castles for all I care. But I think though, having this other icon in there is something that is unnecessary, but I like the patterns, like on the backside of that sign. That's a unique thing. You don't see that on a lot of signs. I like the post, the green. I think that's great.
We have Eileen digitally wants to comment. Go ahead, Eileen, if you want to unmute.
Sorry, Mark.
You're good.
Yeah, and I totally agree. The more stuff on a sign, the harder it is to see it. All we're asking for are the welcoming signs at the corners of the borough and at the parks. That's all we ask for the castle to be put back in those, because otherwise you just get too much complication and it's harder to read signs. So just to clarify that, I didn't say that before.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What does it matter? You just said that it's distracting. You just want a castle. That's what I'm hearing. I just want a castle. That's all I'm hearing.
Clarify the directional signs. With the welcoming signs would be a different, but the directional signs, when you're looking for directions, you're looking for the verbiage directing, you're looking for library, you're looking for, parking, you're looking for, but a welcoming sign is, I think, a different sign.
A much bigger sign too.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a problem putting the castle on it. And if you want to put the castle to the left and the not to the right.
Well, no,
At this point,
you've got too much, I mean, I agree with Eileen, just the entrances to Castle Shannon, a bigger sign. I'm sure we could come up with some kind of open concept castle that would be acceptable.
Did you have something?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm just on the topic of the wayfinding. I don't know if anybody's familiar with like the city of Pittsburgh. They have a very distinct wayfinding system. It's color coded. If you ever look at their signs, they have like the logo of the city on the top. It's actually very stylized and it's color coded. And there's nothing on there, doesn't have like that diamond, whatever they have, like is the city of Pittsburgh, like crest.
Oh, that old logo.
It doesn't have that, yeah, like the old logo you see on the police cars. Like they don't have that on their signs. It's a very color coded, it's very understandable. And then when you go to the locations, I'm just gonna use like cathedral learning, it's a pit or whatever, but they have a sign out there and it's like purple or something. And then that stylizing, it was purple. You don't need to have the logo of anything on your sign. I mean, there's nothing on that sign. It just tells you where the location is. You go to the location, there's a big star. But that's very basic. But I think in the color scheme of everything, I think that kind of gives a nod to everything. You don't necessarily need to have like a distinct logo. You're still gonna have it on your, even in let's say that they put a new sign on the building here and it could have the castle on it, you know? I think we're getting hung up on the case that the icon of the castle is going away. I think there's ways around it to appease everybody. I'm just.
Debbie.
Don't know.
Debbie.
The laser cut is white on your
Yes.
graphic there.
Yep.
Would it be white in reality or would it be gold like metal?
That would be the whole.
Yeah, so it's probably like an aluminum color, so
Like
it,
a silver beam?
yeah, probably. Yeah, the idea is that it's so thin that the color of that is probably not super discerning.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, it's not colorized in here. Yep.
Yeah, if we're gonna change the signs, can we change the sign up at the Bird Building to let people know what's going on? Digital?
Like a digital sign at the bird.
Yeah, well,
You know.
yeah, let me,
We're having a meeting.
I'm-
such and such, to let people know.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I just want to touch on digital signage for a second. So there, just like there are types of static signs, there are types of digital signs. Some of them are full color and very small pixels, so it looks very like dynamic, almost like a TV. And then some are more of like old school, which is just like colored letters on black matte background. I don't think we want to go the full color in your face. I hate to say it, but if you go to the jewelry store at Sparkles, thank you. So that's an example of a sign that is, I think, a little regrettable because it's very distracting when you pull up to the, so, you know, it is what it is. But I would not be comfortable committing the borough or even a facility like the library. I don't want a sign that is a distraction. I want a sign that's informing. And so if it's small, if it's compact, if it's matted black background with reasonable letters that are visible, and it may even turn off at a certain hour just so that it wasn't distracting at very late hours, but we are open to it. I just want to clarify that. So the bond dollars that are assigned to wayfinding, that 100,000, there would be no digital signage in that because that would only be for the streetscape portion. We wanted to time the streetscape installation with the signs for downtown, just so that that is at least a complete section. There's no digital signage in there, that area.
I have another question. On the signs, for the streets now.
Oh,
when
sure.
your headlights hit it,
Yes,
would they bright, show up?
that's actually required by PennDOT.
Is it?
So yes, there's that kind of luminescence is a requirement. Yeah, so if you've seen an aging street sign in Castle Shannon that isn't luminescent, whenever it gets replaced, it will be luminescent and it has to be. I want to pause just for a second. Is there anyone in person or online who hasn't spoken yet that would like to comment? I just want to give folks a chance that maybe just aren't so. It's okay if not. Hi, Marion in the back.
Yeah, I just want to say how much I appreciate everybody's input. You know, this is not an easy discussion as we all have learned this evening, previous. You know, it's not something that the council rushes off. And, you know, we really take a lot of time and effort into it. You know, we want to make everybody happy, and I'm saying tonight it's probably not possible. But, you know, maybe there is a compromise. I'm hearing some of these comments. And, you know, I think council is willing to at least talk about it a little bit and, you know, maybe think about things. And it's important, you know, that people do, they're passionate about their community, and that's a good thing. And we all want the same thing. We want to make our community better. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else who has not had a chance to speak online or in person? Okay. So with that, I just want to alert us. So we're at 8 o'clock. It's okay. There's no end time per se. We've covered a lot of ground, but if we're at an impasse as far as my side's been said, their side's been said, my side, then let's leave it. If there's anything that hasn't been commented on, now would be a good time. Otherwise, we're going to move to close the meeting. So, yeah.
I'm gonna go back to the park. When
Okay.
do you plan on starting?
Oh, and you asked that too,
Yes.
so I apologize for
That's
that.
okay.
Thank you.
That was
Yeah,
my-
Let's answer that now. So my colleagues at council, we've been keen on trying to parallel path the financing of these projects and the completion of the designs and the scope. We are on pace for that, which means that our bond issuance can be approved, I think, as early as, do you know? Next week. Which would mean that the funds are available to fund these projects. The detail level stuff obviously can go plus or minus. From a completion perspective, my goal has always been, we can make these parks improvements, even the biggest of them, within 4 years. We would obviously have to do it piecemeal and make sure it's non-disruptive. So if Upper Hamilton is under construction, Lower Hamilton will not be, so people can still enjoy it. Equipment staged in a certain place, it may make sense just to knock it out and be, take care of real and then move on. So we defer to our engineers on good planning for that. But our intent is that within 4 years, all of these parks and all of the wayfinding will be finished.
Prospect's gonna take 4 years.
No,
Oh, thank you.
we won't do that.
Thank you.
No.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, please, yeah.
Actually, I was on
Online.
Zoom and I'm.
Oh, glad you came.
It's on a video. So, no.
Huh.
I was just wondering how many people here tonight are from the actual Rebecca or Middleborough area near Hamilton Park? One?
As far as lives there,
Yeah,
anybody know?
I'm on Lindell.
you're on Linda.
Okay.
Okay, I just mentioned that because I just really have to. And getting back to you, I think you're probably the one that spoke about the first field. Great, but I'd like to see programs come in. Great, but ultimately, if we count the parking spaces that you have right now.
Mhm.
One team on either side, take a football team. Parents are not allowed to come watch according to where the parking would be.
Mhm.
Because there's no parking. Even on the street availability, there's no parking on Grant. There's no parking anywhere other than Rebecca Street.
And to add to that,
And it's only a one-sided, it's only one side that you can park on there. Or traffic is where the GPS has been bringing it down. We have to remember that that little area has been crushed with, now we've got the new Ryan home development. Yay on development, but our little neighborhood is not, and I'm really concerned. I know my neighbors. I'm not surprised that no one's here tonight. But I know one neighbor's moving at the corner of that street, and unsolicited last summer, the neighbor at the other corner, they count how many cars go through that stop sign on a daily basis. One last point, I promise I'll stop talking about it, but is that this traffic light at Mindful,
Mhm.
when you're leaving at certain times of the day, which would happen during events. And anyway, I'm
Yeah, only
I'm
3 cars
scheduled
get out.
7 minutes at the traffic light.
Yeah.
So when you add that part traffic, is it really gonna take me 20 minutes to get out of my home? And if it is, I don't know, and I have to be honest with you, I'm not plugging it as a real estate agent. I know honestly, I moved there because of the park. And because of that, if you put turf, you're pushing me out with my dog, and there's no way we can deny that that's not what's gonna happen. And I don't wanna bring up a big dog story subject, which brings me back to, I will not be able to even walk a dog in my property around, because like Grant Street at 3 or 315, I cannot walk my dog because you have to jump into someone's parking, their driveway to get off the road because there's so much traffic coming home from it. Just staying out of it, that's.
and to add to that, the shelter is rented every Saturday and Sunday from May until September.
Yes.
So
very
that lot
popular.
is frequently full of cars anyhow. So you load your 5-year-old into a car and say, oh, let's go to the park for the playground or play bladder ball. And you can't park in the lower or in the upper pavilion is rented almost every weekend too.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of activity there just with that during the summer. So you add to that, like, you can build a field of dreams, but if you don't have a place to park, it's irrelevant.
And it is cardiac kill everywhere around, and I walk them all the time. So,
Yeah, and points well taken. I will say that parking, we can allow parking to be an impediment to make all of this unnecessary if we want to, right? Because we could make a case for don't put any money into the parks because we don't want more traffic. So they just know that I'm sensitive to that, but I also know that we need recreation more than we need parking. Doesn't mean there aren't pinch points, but just if we had to place a bet on the future of our community, it's going to be in busier parks, not in less busy parks.
That middle section of Hamilton Park,
Yes.
between the upper and the lower. Parking could go in there maybe,
Oh,
you know, I mean, it's just a thought. If it really got down to a problem that it's dangerous, you know, because people are parking on the wrong side, you know, the police, fire trucks can't get through, things like that. It's just an idea that it's expanded. Now, those houses over on Hamilton, how would they have access from Orr? I mean, are cars really going, why would they just be going up Hamilton? Instead of going up like through.
When the Jeep, I moved in there in 2015. And if you remember back, I sound old, but our GPSs weren't as up to.
Okay.
So as soon as the GPS, so in 2015, I could walk them in there, no problem. Starting around 5 o'clock, I started 4:30, I started noticing I couldn't, we started figuring it out. I put my GPS on my phone and it routed me to stay away from the heavier traffic off of 88. It was cutting us through.
Okay.
So many people have now learned to do that cut. I don't think there's ever been a study down at that stop sign, but it's a community. We already have one neighbor on the corner moving out.
It's how Waze sends you.
Well,
It's
that
not-
definitely
you can
that
bring
light
everybody in there,
next
but they
to
don't
Mindful
get-
Brewery going out onto 88, only 3 cars get out of there at a time at a light. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, I
I'll,
agree. but-
I'll mention just 2 things, which is, and apologize if I didn't spend much time on it. One way to cut down on how much vehicular traffic is to give people the choice of walking instead. And so there are 2 ways that we've done that in this case. The first is in the lower right, which is allowing everyone at the new Hamilton Place area, all of those new units, they now can walk up the hill to the park. Otherwise, if they wanted to use the park, they would have had to drive all the way up and around. So all, call it 200 cars down there, we've kind of displaced and at least given them the chance to walk. The second is that connection from Fountain Street up to the upper. Now that is a vertical lift, and so I wouldn't recommend it for people who aren't comfortable on stairs. But that too is to try and give people, if they were coming from down to up, so if they're coming from maybe downtown or any of the neighborhoods below, like if I were walking up, I believe it's Grant Street. I mean, if a car crests and comes down and I'm walking, it is not safe.
I know, I
Nor
live
on
right
Middleborough.
there.
And Middleborough,
Middleborough's the
that's
same.
that topography constraint. So what we're trying to give people is, even if you have to walk down to go up, meaning down to Fountain, a safe dead end street, to go up to Hamilton, if you're on the lower stretches of those, the down parts of those streets, that's a safer route, 100% safer route. I won't disagree that sometimes walking a dog certain times, it's going to be a little bit more perilous. But again, we still have to balance for, we're underserved in recreation, we're underserved in programming. If we really did a traffic count, and summer, and obviously in rental season, it's a high, but average car at Hamilton, car count at Hamilton on a weekday at 10 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2, 3.
Oh, no, I agree with all that, but if you
Yeah.
have an event and you have 100 people, you literally would not have a place that you live in, there would be nowhere to put anything.
Mhm.
You'd be requiring bus shuttle. So if that becomes a hassle up there, well, this won't come.
Yeah, actually, COVID has cut down a lot on the traffic, I think.
Yeah.
Because so many people working from home, there's not as much, you know.
I
Yeah,
agree.
I'm just being real.
But the weekend event things.
No, we want to hear it. We want to hear it.
Even if you parked everybody on Rebecca, which would be the closest street, you would get 15 cars.
Yep.
Hamilton Park days, they close it off. I mean, when you park on both sides.
All right.
Well presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was gonna say,
You did a good
thank you.
job.
You guys all, please, you guys did the work. For those who are online, any final comments from that group? Anybody want to raise a hand? Okay, this presentation was recorded. If you have neighbors that didn't show up or couldn't, send it to them. The link will be posted on the borough website. We'll probably send it out on Facebook too. We want people to see this. The venue after this would be to come to a council meeting and share the thoughts. Even if we approve the bond doesn't guarantee that we're going to do all these things. It just says we're agreeing to the expense of the bond to do parks and wayfinding. But the detail level stuff, we can still make decisions on. But if you have friends, colleagues, family members who couldn't be here, but this matters to them, please send it to them. We didn't go through this trouble, so they couldn't get to see it or couldn't hear it. So we'll upload this, but I thank you all. We stayed over time and I appreciate that you're willing to stay and do that. So with that, I'll say good night. Thank you. We'll linger if you want to talk about it. Thank you to those on Zoom.
I think all my questions got answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
You
being here.
handled it very well. I
Oh,
think.
please, that's my job. Thank you.